Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. I'm Joy Bivens, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as the director of this historic institution. And I'm delighted to welcome you to our annual Arturo Schomburg Lecture. We are so glad that you took the time to join us both here in the Langston Hughes Auditorium and on our streaming platform as we celebrate the legacy of our namesake, the Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile, curator, and scholar, Arturo Alfonso Schomburg. We are honored and grateful that the distinguished scholar, Professor Claudine Gay, is joining us on this historic stage to share in this year's celebration. As I am sure you all know, we turned 100 years last year. So you can give it up for that. 100 years old. And we are still very much in celebration mode. But this year, in 2026, marks another centennial. In May 1926, almost a year to the day, Arturo Schomburg sold his personal collection to the New York Public Library. That collection, which we affectionately call the Seed Collection, is the foundation of our holdings, which number 11 million items, and that continues to grow. Arturo Schomburg's collection was built on a philosophy, an idea that these materials constituted what he called vindicating evidences of Black people's presence, persistence, and contribution to world history. Tonight, we take time to commemorate his work, his thoughts, and the guiding principles that shaped his work, and continue to serve as beacons to what we do today. And I still think that work remains vital, urgent, and sacred. Now, I said we were still celebrating, but I also want to pause for gratitude and extend sincere thanks to our donors, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, the Mellon Foundation, New York Life, MetLife, and the Full Graph Foundation. They have been extraordinary partners and supporters of our centennial efforts. I'd also like to extend gratitude to the members of the Schomburg and Langston Hughes Societies, the Centennial Advisory Committee, and our entire community for your steadfast generosity and support of this important work. And as always, I want to thank all of my colleagues at the Schomburg Center and across the New York Public Library who have made this evening and every program you've had the opportunity to join possible. Tonight, we are especially grateful to be joined by members of the Schomburg family. Who's here? Dean, I see you. Will you just give us a wave? Dean Schomburg. Dean is the grandson of Arturo Schomburg. We are also joined tonight by the president of the New York Public Library, Tony Marks. Tony, where are you? Thank you for being here. When I saw Tony, he said, "The world is terrible, but I'm great." And I think that we might all kind of feel that way in some way. Tonight's program comes at a moment when questions about democracy, institutions, and civic trust feel especially urgent. And moments like these demand thoughtful, rigorous voices. They demand institutions like the Schomburg Center, like the New York Public Library. And we are also fortunate tonight to be joined by a very vigorous, rigorous, thoughtful voice in Dr. Claudine Gay. In just a moment, yes. In just a moment, you will be formally introduced to our guest speaker, but I just want to say now how personally pleased I am to welcome Dr. Gay to the Schomburg Center. You know, there have been members of our team, of my colleagues who've been planning, plotting, asking, will they say yes? Hopefully they'll join us, and I'm just so glad that she said yes to being here. So thank you, Professor Gay. And again, thanks to each of you for being here tonight. we're delighted to be in your presence, and we look forward to a powerful and engaging conversation. So to get us started, I'd like you to join me in welcoming to the podium our Associate Director of Public Programs and Exhibitions, Novella Ford, who will introduce our guests. Welcome, Novella.
Good evening, good evening. Good evening once again, and welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, where every month is Black History Month, and Black history is for everyone. As Joy said, my name is Novella Ford. I'm the Associate Director of Public Programs and Exhibitions. And as you all know, for 100 years, with its origins at the original 135th Street Library, the Schomburg has been the intellectual heart of Harlem. And we thank you for contributing to the communities that affirm our work every day. We are also pleased to have you join us for this timely conversation with Dr. Claudine Gay as our featured lecturer for the Annual Arturo Schomburg Lecture and Conversation. This event marks the 152nd anniversary of the birth of Afro-Puerto Rican scholar Arturo Alfonso Schomburg. He was born on January 24th, and we'll continue to commemorate his birthday this Saturday with the Transcribe-a-thon Remaking the World of Arturo Schomburg, which is a partnership with Fisk University to create a digital edition of the archival papers of Mr. Schomburg. We are always all in gratitude for his vision to deposit this collection at the 135th Street Branch Library, and invite you to save the date for May 7th of this year, as we will open a new exhibition to uncover and reveal to the world Arturo Schomburg's library, where you can view evidence of the initial Schomburg Collection. Following tonight's program, we have a festive reception, and we invite guests to gather in the Langston Hughes lobby for not only the reception, but featuring plena and bamba, percussion-centered music traditions of African heritage from Puerto Rico, presented by Jorge Vasquez and El Corillo. The celebration continues with a live musical performance by Standing on the Corner. To learn more about the Schomburg Center and our upcoming programs, please visit schomburg.org/100. I'm also going to ask you to take your time to silence your cell phones. If I don't hear rumbling, that means no one is taking the time to silence their cell phones. And I'm also going to ask that you limit your personal recorded clips of tonight's program. If you're looking to share tonight's program, it is available online via live stream, and also post this program on youtube.com/the Schomburg Center. Again, that's on youtube.com/the Schomburg Center. As you were already introduced, moderating tonight's conversation is Joy Bivens, who is the director of the Schomburg Center. Before joining the Schomburg, Bivens served as the chief curator of the International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina. And prior to that, she was the director of curatorial affairs at the Chicago History Museum. She has said, "In my career, I have worked to help others make sense of history, to make connections between the past and the present, and to help create a true understanding of where we are now and where we are going. I truly hope that between Joy and Claudine, they could actually tell us where we are now and where are we going, because boy, are we in a time, are we not?" Dr. Claudine Gay is the Wilbur A. Cowett Professor of Government and Professor of African and African American Studies at Harvard University. Gay served as the university's 30th president. Prior to becoming president, Gay led Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Sciences, FAS, as the Edgar Lee Family Dean. As FAS Dean, Gay guided efforts to expand student access and opportunity, spur excellence and innovation in teaching and research, enhance aspects of FAS's academic culture, and bring new emphasis and energy to areas such as quantum science and engineering, climate change, ethnicity, indigeneity, and migration, and the humanities. She successfully led the FAS through the COVID pandemic, consistently and effectively prioritizing the dual goals of safeguarding community health and sustaining academic continuity and progress. She expanded undergraduate financial aid, raising the bright line below which students attend Harvard College at no cost to $85K annual family income, even while bringing FAS's cash reserves to unprecedented levels. And I'll just say, in short, it is so important that we understand people's bios, because sometimes we are led to believe that people are unqualified, particularly Black people are unqualified for the jobs in which they have been selected. She also launched and led an ambitious, inclusive, and faculty-driven strategic planning process, taking a fresh look at fundamental aspects of the FAS's structures, resources, and operations, and to advance academic excellence. Gay is an elected member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the proud daughter of Haitian immigrants. I also want us to remember that Dr. Gay was the first person of color and the second woman in Harvard's 386-year history to serve as president. In one of the first U.S. conversations since the news of Dr. Gay's departure from the presidency, we are honored to amplify her leadership and add her voice to the national dialogues concerning race, academic freedom, DEI, and the future of Black leadership. With that said, please give her the warmest round of applause, Dr. Claudine Gay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. Thank you, and for that extraordinarily warm welcome to the Schomburg Center, and also for just the great honor of speaking here during the center's centennial celebrations. I'm deeply grateful to Joy Bivens and her team for their stewardship of this vital institution, to the New York Public Library System for serving as guardian of democratic knowledge, and to all of you gathered here tonight in Harlem at this historic crossroads of culture and resistance. So I started my day today taking a walk around the campus of City College of New York. It's my father's alma mater, and it's an institution that catalyzed an immigrant journey that began in the laundry room of Beth Israel Hospital and led to this podium. And as I stand here tonight, I feel buoyed by my father's story and reminded of how resilience and audacious dreams for yourself and for your family can echo across generations. And also reminded of the difference that institutions can make when they understand their purpose. Schomburg is an institution that understands its purpose, which is to preserve truth against erasure. So we meet in a space that was born from defiance. When a teacher in Puerto Rico told young Arturo Schomburg that Black people had no history worth studying, that dismissal sparked what would become a lifelong mission: to document, preserve, and celebrate the contributions of African peoples to global civilization. His collection today stands as both proof and promise. Proof that his teacher was profoundly wrong, and promise that truth, once preserved, becomes indestructible. Tonight, standing in this repository of truth, we see precisely what is under siege in our current moment. This institution embodies the intersection of two forces: the unfettered pursuit of knowledge and the full participation of Black Americans in the life of our democracy. The Schomburg Center is a testament to what becomes possible when these forces work in concert, and its existence also illuminates what we stand to lose if we allow their destruction. So this evening, I just want to take a moment to explore, in my remarks and then in my conversation with Joy, how these two forces of knowledge and racial justice are under coordinated assault. More importantly, I want to examine why these attacks are not separate phenomena, but fundamentally intertwined, and why understanding that connection is essential to mounting an effective defense. But first, like any good problem solver, you have to name what it is we face. So we witness today the systematic dismantling of knowledge institutions, with higher education serving as ground zero. What began years ago as disparate state-level efforts to abolish tenure, rewrite curricula, limit faculty governance, and just generally meddle in university affairs has escalated into a sweeping federal campaign to strip colleges and universities of their independence and refashion them to serve an ideological agenda. The ambition really is breathtaking in scope. Political control over who gains admission, who joins the faculty, what questions drive research, what truths can be taught. Every pathway to knowledge, every avenue of inquiry now faces the prospect of political veto, enforced through investigations, financial penalties, and the withdrawal of the federal support that has sustained American higher education for generations. Simultaneously, we see a coordinated assault on more than 5 decades of Black racial progress. And in higher education, that backlash gained momentum with the 2023 Supreme Court decisions ending affirmative action, and has been turbocharged by federal threats and mandates that effectively incentivize institutions to discriminate and exclude. And the impacts are already visible, frankly, everywhere you look. They're visible in declining Black enrollments at the nation's top colleges and universities, in some cases to levels not seen since 1968. The elimination of programs aimed at diversifying faculty and teaching staff. Curricular reforms to curtail teaching about race and racism on the grounds that it is divisive. The shuttering of centers and initiatives and offices designed to address racial inequality and make campuses more welcoming. These changes have been documented at more than 400 colleges and universities across the country. We see excellence positioned against inclusion, as if these were opposing rather than reinforcing values, as if excellence can exist in an environment of exclusion. It's a campaign to marginalize Black voices on campus and beyond. So first, you erase Black people from the curriculum, then the classroom, and ultimately from the ranks of society's leaders. Too often, the attacks on knowledge institutions and the backlash against Black racial progress are understood as distinct phenomena within a broader illiberal project against multiracial democracy. And we tell ourselves, they're operating on parallel tracks that just happen to share adversaries. This framing offers the convenient fiction that one can defend knowledge while abandoning racial justice, that institutions can remain neutral while democracy itself erodes. And this separation is false and dangerous. These assaults are symbiotic, each requiring and reinforcing the other. The attacks on higher education cannot succeed without marginalizing Black voices within the academy, and the rollback of racial progress cannot advance without undermining the institutions that have served as engines of social and economic transformation. And to understand our moment, we have to grasp this fundamental interconnection. So then the question then becomes why? Why have knowledge institutions proven so essential to racial progress that attacking one requires attacking the other? And for that, we need only consider what colleges and universities have accomplished over the past half century. By abandoning exclusionary practices in admissions and hiring, they created pipelines that transformed professions and boardrooms and courtrooms previously barred to Black Americans. They provided the intellectual framework to challenge centuries of pseudoscientific justifications for racial hierarchy. They undertook the difficult work of recovering suppressed histories and paving the way to accountability and repair. And in their classrooms, multiracial democracy learned to imagine itself. When universities open pathways to power, when they force reckonings with uncomfortable truths, when they insist that both truth and excellence require diverse perspectives, they challenge fundamental assumptions about who belongs where and who decides what matters. The assault on these institutions aims directly at their transformative capacity. If colleges and universities are weak and dependent, they can neither safeguard the legacy of Black activism nor continue the unfinished business of building an integrated and equitable society. And the reciprocal weakening runs deeper still. When Black voices are marginalized in the academy, the reverberations are profound. The theft of perspectives impoverishes every discipline it touches. Economics loses insights about wealth gaps and structural inequality. Medicine fails to address health disparities. History becomes an uncontested tale of great men and lost causes. Literature shrinks. Law loses its capacity to recognize injustice. Weakened institutions lose moral authority and intellectual rigor. The capacity to pursue truth atrophies alongside the capacity to advance justice. Because these capacities, we have to understand this, because they are not separate. They never were. It is the unrelenting pressure of new questions to answer, new ideas to consider, new contradictions to resolve that pushes the boundaries of discovery outward. Knowledge production without diverse participation lacks this centrifugal force, narrowing the aperture on truth and putting real understanding out of reach. An institution that cannot reckon with racial injustice cannot fully reckon with climate change and economic inequality and democratic decay or any of the defining challenges of our time. Yet here is where we confront a painful paradox. Even as these external attacks intensify, even as the stakes become clearer, many of our institutions have become accomplices in their own diminishment. Over the last year, we've witnessed the voluntary abandonment of the independence that makes truth-seeking and transformation possible, along with the restructuring of institutions to silence voices that only recently gained entry. We see principles declared sacred just years ago are jettisoned. Programs that opened doors, changed lives, and enriched scholarship all vanished overnight. The velocity of the retreat has been stunning, as institutions, unwilling to bear the consequences of standing firm, yield with little protest to critics who never sought compromise, only surrender. Where is the defense of inclusion as a precondition for excellence, not a threat to it? Where are the leaders willing to make the case that diverse institutions are stronger institutions, that diversity is essential to intellectual rigor and to democracy? The answer becomes clear when we examine not what institutions surrender, but what they protect with fierce determination. Practices such as legacy admissions that ensure generational wealth maintains its privileges. Donor relationships that compromise institutional integrity but fill institutional coffers. Elitism rebranded as excellence. The contradiction reveals itself starkly, laying bare priorities that should disturb anyone committed to the mission of higher education. Institutions will sacrifice truth and transformation even as they zealously guard the mechanisms of exclusion. And this selectivity exposes a deeper truth. When push comes to shove, when difficult choices must be made, too many institutions choose the path of least resistance, siding with those who have always had power while abandoning those whose presence challenges the established order. The intertwined attacks on knowledge institutions and Black racial progress demand an integrated response. We can't defend knowledge while turning our backs on those who have been excluded from producing it. The false choice between excellence and inclusion must be exposed for what it is: a tool to preserve existing hierarchies on and off campus while claiming principled neutrality. Despite intense external pressures, institutional agency remains. Some institutions find ways to advance their missions even in hostile environments. Others surrender before the first shot is fired. The choice of which path to take remains, even now, especially now, within institutional control. How do we rebuild institutional courage in an age of intimidation? What can we learn from institutions that have refused to surrender? How do we nurture the next generation who will carry forward the work of transformation? The Schomburg Center itself offers a model. For a century, it has demonstrated that preservation is resistance. Every manuscript collected, every history documented, every scholar supported represents an act of faith in a future where truth matters, and an unshakable belief that truth preserved becomes truth magnified. The assault on knowledge and racial progress is real, coordinated, and dangerous. But it's not destiny. Like Arturo Schomburg himself, who transformed one teacher's denial into a lifetime of documentation, this institution teaches us that erasure can be answered with preservation, silence with amplification, destruction with reconstruction, stronger and more inclusive than before. Arturo Schomburg began collecting because a teacher told him he had no history. Tonight, in this magnificent institution that bears his name, surrounded by the documented proof of Black excellence across centuries and continents, we know how that story ends. Now we face our own test. The fight against erasure is ours to continue. What will the story of this moment be? That choice is ours to make. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Y'all, I got a little comfortable back there just listening because what you said was so resonant.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
but also the kind of call to action as institutional leaders, as leaders in whatever organizations we may be in, as leaders in our lives, right?
Yes.
Who have agency over
Yes.
the decisions that we make.
Yes.
And so, you know, Professor Gay is very well organized. And if you're going to have a conversation with her, we're going to talk about beforehand what that conversation looks like in terms of an arc. And again, I'm so grateful for you being here tonight to share a little bit about kind of giving us a path forward and to share what you're working on. But the first question I wanted to kind of wrestle with is, why is this what is inspiring your work at this moment? I mean, I have ideas, but I'd love to hear you articulate them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the short answer is I care deeply about the mission of higher education, and have been watching with increasing alarm the attacks on higher ed and the mission of higher ed, and feeling shaken and dismayed by how the sector is responding in this moment. What's being lost, who's being abandoned, how the whole vision for higher ed seems to be contracting in ways that, you know, may be very difficult to reverse. And as I reflect on how to intervene, other than in the work I do directly with my students and all the signal chats that I'm on, I feel that one important step is bearing witness and helping others understand the moment that we're in, making the stakes clear and the risks visible. And so the reason I agreed to this conversation is because it seemed like an opportunity to do that, again, beyond conversations with my students and my signal chats.
Right, it is the beauty of the library.
Yeah.
Right? It's the beauty of the library.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you kind of laid some of the reasons out in your talk, but what are some of the reasons, if you could go even deeper, that you think universities, institutions of higher education have, you know, acquiesced so quickly to external demands?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are, I think I see a few things going on. One is that universities are panicked and reeling and naively assume, I think it's catastrophically naive, but naively assume that capitulation will save them, that there's some safety in that, and that there is a deal to be struck that could satisfy bad faith critics and protect the mission. And that's not possible. That's impossible. And in fact, the only thing that's accomplished is to normalize actions that are profoundly anti-democratic and deserve only contempt. So I think that's one of the things that's going on. I think another reason why so many commitments seem to have just evaporated under pressure. Should I pause for a moment? I know it's hard to have more than one conversation at a time.
Okay.
So, where was I? So I think one of the other reasons I think that so many commitments evaporated under pressure is, and I think this is a revelation for a lot of people, including myself, is that while a lot of institutions have developed a certain fluency in the language of diversity and inclusion, it turns out those values are weakly held and poorly understood. I think there's very little appreciation for how those values connect directly to the knowledge mission, which they do, and very little appreciation for the history and the context that gave rise to the programs and initiatives and the measures that are now being wiped away. And one thing, just to digress for a moment, one thing that I've been so struck by in the rollback and in messaging about the various rollbacks and renaming of this and that is the failure to acknowledge that there was ever a problem that needed to be solved, that there was like a context behind these programs. And so I'm a faculty member at an institution that for most of its nearly 400-year history has explicitly discriminated against Black people. And even today, across a tenured and tenure-track faculty that numbers over 1,500 people, fewer than 90 of them are Black. And the numbers are even more stark as you look at other Black professionals at this institution. And those are facts. That is part of the context that, again, motivated the various efforts and initiatives and programs that are now being, again, wiped away to placate critics who never wanted to fix those problems and who want to weaken the university. And so when you've got just kind of baseline ignorance about that history and context, that just kind of softens the ground for quickly making concessions, because you don't really get why these programs are there anyways.
Right.
So I think that's part of what's going on. And then finally, to state the obvious, I think in higher ed, just as in the broader society, there has always been a contingent that harbors resentment about the way inclusion disrupts the status quo, which is very upsetting for people who think that their rightful place in any hierarchy is at the top. And so this is the moment they've been waiting for, and in some cases have actively worked to bring about. So I see all of these dimensions at play in this moment and contributing to the kinds of responses we're seeing from so many institutions.
I think you have such clarity on that. And also, if we look to history, we see the repetition of certain types of behaviors, of certain types of philosophies, or even
it's like a post-Reconstruction moment.
Absolutely, around it.
Completely.
And yet, the information is there.
Yes, it is there. It is there. Yes,
Right? And so earlier today, we were in the archive looking at the kind of the founding documents of Harvard's Afro-American Studies program, which the donor of that did not want it to be at Harvard.
They
wanted it to be at the Schomburg Center, right? Where that information has been collected and preserved.
And there was no doubt about the mission.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No doubt about
Yeah.
the mission.
Yeah.
And I think that when I say we watched these things happen previously and they've had historic repercussions, I wonder what you kind of foresee as the implications of such blatant rollovers at this moment, if you will, if that's the right term. Because I think about it even in, let's just say, government funding. What are the implications of that for a generation, for another generation who is trying to develop institutional capacity, infrastructure, and all of that is just wiped away that quickly?
I think there are so many losses, some of which I spoke to in my brief remarks, some of which are very visible, losses in terms of literally who's on campus, what faculty and students feel free to study and teach, and kind of any sense for the purpose of these institutions. So a lot of that is very visible. But one thing that perhaps is less appreciated, because it's less visible but is no less damaging, is just the loss of trust. And the loss of trust in institutions that for, at this point, decades loudly proclaimed a set of commitments around truth, commitments around inclusion, that they're walking away from. And I think the loss of trust that results from that is deep and profound. I do not know the path to recovering that trust, but I suspect it's a very long one.
It takes a moment to end something.
Just like that. Yes.
Many years.
It's all more fragile and precarious than sometimes we appreciate. And I think that's a larger statement that could be made about this whole moment, and our understanding of the fragility of democracy. I think is something that is all much more salient to all of us now than it was even a couple years ago.
So I have two questions, and one of them is directly related to some of the things that you were arguing for, some of the ideas you were putting forth in your remarks that have to do with institutional courage. And how do we build institutional courage? I mean, I think there's a level of, within our own institutions, in our own organizations, where that courage definitely has to be built, fortified, rebuilt, refortified, so on and so forth. But as institutions are a part of larger society, right? And so we're watching it happen inside, but we're also watching it happen around. So how do we potentially build courage in these moments?
So I think it starts by appointing the right leaders, because at the end of the day, institutions aren't courageous, people are. And you need leaders who are prepared to forcefully articulate the moral, intellectual, democratic rationale for the integration of higher education, who are prepared to say, it's not enough for Black people and other marginalized groups just to be present. They need to be included fully and equally. I think that is the first step. I think you can also find courage through collaboration. I mean, one of the things that, again, that's been quite dispiriting about this moment is the number of institutions and individual leaders that seem to be trying to go it alone. When I think institutions and leaders can band together and find strength in a collective determination to preserve the knowledge mission, to protect it, and to protect all of the gains that we've made in building, again, a more integrated society. So I think those are some of the things that that could help in a moment like this?
Yeah, I think there's the leadership, then there are the constituents that are impacted.
Yeah.
And when I think of higher ed, often, I'm thinking of faculty, but the most important constituent is the student body.
Yeah.
Right? This is the future, right?
Yep.
This is where we are looking to for new answers, for new possibilities.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there is a choosing of correct leaders to rebuild that institutional courage. But how do we rebuild trust with that constituency, with those students, with those young people, who have watched? I don't know.
That's not easy.
It's not easy,
It's not.
right?
It's not easy. I think as a first step, anyways, don't abandon the work. Don't surrender to the hostility and cynicism of the moment. Don't be intimidated or co-opted into silence. For you and your colleagues, for Schomburg, that means, continuing to collect and preserve and make sure that there is access to and visibility of just the huge record of Black achievement and contributions. For folks like me in the academy and educators, it's continuing to mentor and educate. I think for each of us in our own way, just continuing to invest in that next generation so that their hopes and their dreams and their ambitions don't atrophy during this period of backlash. I think that is really, really critical. And again, I think the path to rebuilding trust with that generation is going to be a long one, but in the interim, we can still be investing in that generation, hoping that when the storms pass and institutions are prepared for courageous leadership and the like, that generation will be there and ready to contribute. My husband used this metaphor once of you're kind of like tending a garden that's hidden behind a building that nobody knows is there. It's like continuing to do that work. And taking the long view. So I think that's a critical part of investing, I think, in that next generation.
Yeah, well, I'm listening to you talk about your conversations, your engagement with your students, with the next generation of leaders, and what does it look like for you to nurture them? Is it just being in community?
being present, taking their ambitions seriously, and so I think and being honest about the moment that we're in, the constraints and the limitations and the pressures of that moment, but again, not allowing yourself to be defeated by it. I think another, continuing to reflect on this question, I think another thing that's really important, and it's certainly something that I emphasize in my conversations, and when I think about something that all of us could be doing, in addition to, don't abandon the work, also don't lose the plot. I don't get distracted. I think there's a lot of effort at misdirection right now.
Oh my God,
to get us arguing about, higher ed, it lost its way, or DEI had gone too far, or just in any way, any of this being deserved or appropriate. That is a distraction, and if we fall for it, we lose sight of what is actually happening, which is that higher ed is under direct attack, and the agenda is to destroy it as a center of independent thought and ideas and as a tool for social and economic progress. That's all you need to know. And so that is one of the other things that I think is important to being courageous and also responding to this moment in a way that is appropriate and constructive.
I think this moment for me really makes me appreciate the leadership that I saw while I was an undergrad, while I saw folks fighting and having a really strong understanding of what came before. And also the fact that these moments or these movements to create new programs, to create new disciplines, new departments, often didn't just rely on the faculty or the students, but the community that surrounded. Right? And so there was a very kind of integrated effort, if you will.
That we're all in this together. And I mean, this is something I should say that I know that you will appreciate as a historian, like just the need to fight against the ahistoricism of this moment, and again, continue to remind people about the history that led to this moment, why whether certain programs, initiatives, efforts, certain commitments existed, and why it's important to sustain them, why it's important to bring them back, and that is work that, you know, not just faculty and students can be doing, the entire community needs to be doing that work, needs to not lose sight of that just fact base that, again, motivated the efforts around diversity and inclusion, and that, you know, demand vigilance.
I think your numbers are so important too.
Yes, the
numbers
are important.
Yes, so important in making these arguments. So, you know, really as we think about moving forward, and two words that stood out to me, truth and transformation, during your talk, I wonder what are one or two things you would propose we can do, whether we are leaders in institutions or, again, leaders in our own lives, leaders in our communities. What are a couple of things that we can do just to, you know, to be impactful at this moment?
So, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I think staying focused, you know, do not lose the plot, and getting yourself educated about the facts and the history, and insisting that those who are making decisions, including leaders, reckon with those facts and that history, reckon with the reality of problems that needed to be solved that remain still insufficiently addressed. I think that is the way that all of us can be part of the solution. Again, knowing that it's going to be a very long road, but that's the way that we can be proactive and constructive in a moment like this. Staying focused and educating ourselves, and then trying to educate others.
Absolutely. I wonder in these kind of very uncertain times, and again, I just really want to thank you for being here. One, because you know, you've been abroad and now you're here with us here in Harlem, talking to us at the Arturo Schomburg Lecture, bringing your knowledge of who he was also into the conversation, because I think he still is so resonant. His philosophy is still so vital and something that we can grab onto and hold on to, I think, even in these moments. And I just
Which is why I said yes.
Well, I'm so glad you said yes. I wonder in these really very uncertain times, remember I said, I'm sorry, Tony, I'm just gonna keep saying it. The world is terrible, but I'm great. What's bringing you hope in this moment? Or joy? You know?
I would say students and young people. They're neither agree. They are not cynical. They are not compromised. they see things as they are and feel empowered to use their voice in ways that I just find awe-inspiring. And the reason I've chosen to spend my career on a college campus is because I want to be close to hope. And students are that for me.
That's a really good answer. You guys see me looking around because I'm looking for my person and I don't see her. So to keep us moving forward and make sure that we are well in time. But since we have a little bit more time to talk, I'm going to we can talk a little bit more. And I said hope, and also I just, one of the things that gives me hope, that the Schomburg for me is a hopeful place, right? I think that the history of this place is always about resisting. It is about thinking far into the future. I had one colleague say Arturo Schomburg was the true Afro-futurist, if you will, because there's a way in which we preserve things and we're not sure.
Yes, right, you don't know.
At the moment, why.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking about what people might need in the future, then it becomes it really becomes an awe-inspiring act to think so much of not just yourself, but the people coming after you and what they might need. And so when you think about what you want to leave,
I think that is a model. I feel it's something that those of us who are shaken and dismayed by what we're seeing, can look to a model like that. It requires us to cast our mind forward and kind of step out on faith, because right now it's not clear how we're going to arrive at that better future where truth matters, where we recommit to the civil rights imperatives that we thought we had committed to 70 years ago. But thinking about the moment of the founding of Schomburg, which was one of the darkest periods in Black American history, post-Reconstruction, and remembering the act of faith that was required to do that work, I think that is something that can buoy us and bolster our confidence and our willingness to continue to invest in the next generation, to continue to try to educate people, to continue the conversation about the essential nature of diversity and inclusion to the academic enterprise and to the democratic project. Just continuing to do that work, again, hoping that it's not going to be 100 years before it meets its moment, but knowing that we've been down this road before, and the choice that was made by Schomburg and others was to invest, and it has now borne fruit.
I love that. So it sounds like you are encouraging us to continue to invest in ourselves, in our history, in preserving what is true about us. And so that's a really wonderful place to end this conversation.
Thank you.
I want you all, and I know you will, to join me in thanking Dr. Claudine Gay for joining us this evening. I don't know where they are.
Is Novella coming back out?
So we will be led out with percussion.
Oh my gosh.
To celebrate Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Oh.
As we bring this program to the end, let's give another round of applause to Jorge Vasquez. We'll hear more of that. We'll hear more of that as we head into the lobby. But one more time, let's give a round of applause and a thank you to Dr. Gay and Joy Bivens. Happy birthday, Arturo Schomburg. Thank you all for being here. Please enjoy the reception we have prepared for you in the Langston Hughes lobby. Take care.